greatness is something that is not only about you, but it's something that is bigger than you. Well, when I was 12 years old, I was a ball boy for the Chicago Bulls, right? And this was a fun job because I love basketball, and I was working with Michael Jordan in his first years. I actually was the ball boy for the visiting team, so I would get to meet the players that weren't on the Bulls. I got to meet the Magic Johnsons and the Isaiah Thomases, and I would work in the visiting locker room, and each game I would have to go under this tunnel to go to the home locker room to take the towels. This was a great job. I mean, in the neighborhood, I was getting all type of love. I would get free gym shoes and sell those. I was hustling those. It was a good time, you know. Well, around that same time, 12 years old, I was in an English class with a teacher named Mrs. Lynn. And though we were in English class, she would teach us about African history and African American history, black history. And this was so intriguing to me. This class I loved more than anything. Learning about the black poets and black history, Langston Hughes, Nikki Giovanni, different stories about Crispus Attucks. And, we came across the story of a young man named Emmett Till. And when we read this story, it was scary to me. Because the story of Emmett Till is he was a young man from Chicago, the South Side, the same as I am from. And in the 50s, he went down to visit his family in Mississippi. Went to visit his cousins and have a good time during the summer. Well, you all know the northern mentality was definitely different from the southern mentality. And you all know how strong prejudice was and is in many ways. Well, he went to the store with his cousins to go get some candy, and when they got there, he waited outside and was hanging out, and he saw a white woman, and he decided to whistle at her. Now, he didn't take it as a gesture of disrespect, and didn't mean it as a gesture of disrespect, but this white woman felt offended, and she later on that night brought some of her family members to the house that Emmett Till was staying at the age of 14, with the rest of his family, visiting this summer, and they got him and drug him out of the house. They drug him and they started beating him. And they beat him and they beat him. And they beat him until he was dead. They beat him to death and threw him in a river. Now, for days they couldn't find his body, and when they finally did, his head was as big as his podium. And when Mrs. Lynn showed us pictures of Emmett Till and I learned the story, I was scared. I was scared for many reasons. I was like, how could this happen to just somebody for whistling? A kid. This guy, he was only 2 years older than me. I basically looked at him as my age. And I also just felt like, man, the pictures of Emmett Till scared me. Well, during these games that the Bulls would have, and as I told you, I would have to run through the tunnel down. Well, I didn't have to run through the tunnel. But after the story of Emmett Till, I started running through the tunnel at night to get from one locker room to the other because I was scared. Now, after about 8 times of doing this, I decided to be the black guy in the scary movie and just stop it because I felt some spirit down there while I would run. I would feel like the ghost of Emmett Till was behind me chasing me or something. That's how I felt, really. And after that 8th time, I stopped. I was the black guy in the scary movie, like, what? What's up? And I asked, what was going on and what did this spirit have to say to me? And what the spirit said to me was that greatness is in you. You are here to do something great on this earth. And I never told anyone this story. I never told anyone this story, but as I would come out to speak to different people, I felt this story was necessary for me to tell. Because at that moment, I understood that greatness was in me. The spirit of Emmett Till was telling me that I had something great to do in this world. And for many reasons. For the struggles and the grounds that people have paid for us and just because of who I am and what God created me to be. And you have to understand that whatever God created you to be, greatness is in you. It's not just me, it's all of us. Greatness is in us. And when that spirit told me that, man, greatness is in you and you got something great to do on this earth, I was like, all right, cool. I was able to walk through the tunnel a little more calm for the next games and stuff, you know? Well, at that time, I necessarily didn't know what I wanted to do. And though I knew greatness is something that I wanted, I didn't know how to achieve it. Well, how do we achieve greatness if it is in all of us? I've come up with a belief system in achieving greatness, and it's first, find your path, believe in your path, and live it. When you want to achieve greatness, you have to find your path, believe in your path, and live it. Thanks. I appreciate that. Well, finding your path. As I said, I knew greatness was in my soul. Emmett Till had told me so. Well, I didn't know what my path was yet. Like I said, I'm a 12-year-old young man. I loved basketball. I had dreams of being a basketball player. But that was just something that I wanted to do. I really hadn't found my path. And you know, when you find your path, you know what it is. It's not something that will be easy to find all the time, but when you do find it, you know it. Because we all have some voice in us saying what we love to do, what we're passionate about. That really what God sent us here to do. And this voice is important that you listen to, because many times when you are growing up and developing as a human being, you have many voices telling you to do different things. And not that these voices are not there for your good, but your voice is important. Your voice and what your path is important. Society says we should do this. Sometimes our parents say we should do this. Sometimes teachers say we should do this. Our friends say we should do this. But you know what you are passionate about. You know what you love. And when you do get there, you found your path. Well, I'm 12 years old. I don't know what my path is at the time. I'm good at basketball. Well, not too good at basketball yet, but I like basketball. I'm into school, doing pretty well in school. In fact, math was a class that I really enjoyed. And I would be in my math class with my teacher, Mr. Brown, and sometimes in class I would fart in class, right? And I was doing it, I guess I was doing it at that time to get attention from the ladies. That don't work no more. That ain't the way to do it. I understand that now. But anyway, after repeatedly doing that and for attention, my teacher, Mr. Brown, would make me do copies. And I had to learn the Pythagorean theorem and, the area of a square and just keep repeating it. But after a minute, he saw that the copies were the copies. And he stopped me after continuously farting in class. He said, hey, don't be a bumbler all your life. You're greater than that. Don't be a bumbler all your life. You're greater than that. That kind of hit me. And even though I didn't let him know that it hit me at that time, I kind of continued to do what I was doing. But it's so thin and it seeped into my soul, and I realized that was more fuel to my fire. I had already had the seed to know that greatness was inside of me, and I had something great to do on this earth. And when Mr. Brown said what he said, that just let me know, hey, I do have something great to do. And it just reinforced my thoughts. And though I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, it just gave me more inspiration to find what I wanted to do, to leave a mark on this earth. Well, as I said earlier, I was into basketball, and basketball was something that was really fun to me. My father played in the ABA, and it was something that I grew up, I was like, man, I want to be a basketball player. Well, I played ball at this time for the Biddy Basketball League, and the players, when you played in Biddy basketball, the best players played in the first and the fourth quarter. The first and the fourth quarter. The busters played in the second and third quarter, or the average players. unfortunately, I played in the second and third quarter, beginning my career. Well, after a number of games where I got into the game in second, third quarter and really didn't do anything, I barely got the ball, felt like I wasn't contributing and I was being ignored, I would get to the bench and I would act like my stomach was hurting because I was crying. So 3 games this happened, 3 weeks in a row. Well, my uncle, who was the assistant coach, was like, by that time, after the 3rd week, he threw down his keys and he said some words that I can't say at TSU in front of our great elders and all these great people here. He said some words to me to let me know that I needed to work harder at what I was doing. I needed to work hard. If you want to achieve anything in life, you have to work hard. You have to train at it and develop the skill. You know, I knew I was great and I knew some things I wanted to do, but you have to work hard. So I took his words. The next weeks to come, I began practicing. I would get up in the morning before I had to go to school, practicing on my dribbling. I would come home from school, do homework, go out to the park and play. I would play every day and work on my game, training, working hard. When you love something and you really want to become it, you work at it every single day. Train. You work. I worked at it, worked to the point where eventually, during the second and third quarters, I started scoring a couple of points. Then, the next season, hey, I started playing in the first and fourth quarters. Then, eventually, I became an MVP. And obviously, y'all seen me in Just Right, so y'all know I got game now. I grew up to be a gold ball player. But the point I'm making is that you have to train. For whatever you want to do, you have to work hard. Work with passion. Work with like passion that just drives you with the fire for what you love to do. Well, at this time, I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And it was summertime, and I decided to go visit my cousin. His name is Ajale Turner. He lived in Cincinnati, and he actually attended TSU. Yes, sir. Big Aj, I call him. Well, I went to visit Aj, 12 years old. As you can see, a lot was happening in my life at 12. And I decided, we were sitting in this room, and we had some friends of ours they were a little older than us, and they were like Cincinnati's Run DMC. They were the Bond Hill crew. And because they were kind of right in our face and we could see them, I felt like, man, I want to write me a rap, because they were great rappers. So I wrote my rap, and it was like, Aj wrote his rap, and I started saying my rap, and the rest of the guys were like, man, that was cold. They really dug it. In fact, I want to kick y'all. This is the first rap I wrote. I want to kick some of it just since we